The snow fell silent on Sarah Harrison's grave that December morning in 1880. James stood there like a statue carved from prairie stone, his breath making small clouds in the frozen air. 3 years from now, people would still talk about how he looked that day. Empty, hollow, a man with nothing left inside. Sam Tucker stood beside him, one weathered hand resting on his shoulder. The old cook had seen men break before. War did it. Loss did it. The frontier did it every day to men who thought they were strong enough to survive its cruelty. "James," Sam said quietly, "you got to keep living, son." But James said nothing. His eyes stayed fixed on the fresh-turned earth, on the simple wooden cross that marked where his wife of 6 months now lay beneath Dakota soil. The fever had taken her fast. 1 week she was laughing, planning their first spring together. The next week she was burning up, calling for her mother, slipping away despite everything the doctor tried. James had held her hand until it went cold. From that day forward he stopped living. Oh, his body kept moving, his heart kept beating. But the man who had loved Sarah, who had dreamed of building something lasting in this wild territory, that man died with her. What remained was just machinery, working, surviving, nothing more. 3 years passed like that. 3 years of sunrises James barely noticed. 3 years of work that filled his days but not his soul. 3 years of silence where laughter used to live. Sam Tucker stayed because someone had to. The ranch hands came and went uncomfortable around a boss who seemed more ghost than man. Silver Creek Ranch grew anyway, not because James cared, but because work was all he had left. 500 head of cattle now grazed across 2,000 acres. A contract with Northern Pacific Railroad brought steady income. The buildings stood solid and well-maintained. From the outside it looked like success. But James knew the truth. He was just going through the motions, building an empire for no one, living a life that felt like death. Then June came to Dakota Territory in 1883, hot and dry and unforgiving. James rode into Bismarck for supplies, same as he did every month. Buy grain, check the bank, talk to the sheriff about rustlers in the area. Simple, mechanical. Another day in a long string of identical days. He noticed her standing in the middle of Main Street because everyone else was staring. A young woman, maybe 24 or 25, dressed in a worn but respectable traveling dress. She clutched a battered carpet bag with both hands, chin lifted, despite the judgment radiating from every storefront, every passing wagon, every pair of eyes that fell on her. James recognized that look. He had worn it himself 3 years ago. The look of someone the town had decided did not belong. But he did not stop. It was not his business. He had his own ghosts to tend. He continued to the mercantile, placed his order for grain, discussed delivery with the owner. Professional, efficient, empty. As he left, he saw her again. This time she was walking away from the livery stable shoulders, a little more hunched than before. Another door closed. Another rejection delivered. James felt something flicker in his chest. Not quite sympathy, not quite anger. Just a faint stirring of an emotion he thought had died with Sarah. He ignored it. Emotions were dangerous. They made you vulnerable. They made you care. And caring led to loss. Better to feel nothing at all. Bismarck in 1883 sprawled across the Dakota plains like a promise half kept. Buildings rose in hopeful rows along streets that turned to mud with every rain. The railroad had brought civilization and chaos in equal measure. Money flowed through the town now, gold from the Black Hills beef, from the ranches, grain from the homesteaders, brave or foolish enough to try farming this unforgiving land. James finished his business quickly. At the bank, he checked his account and frowned at the numbers. The railroad contract brought good money, but expansion required capital he did not have. Blackwood's Double Creek Ranch was getting the larger contracts, now squeezing out smaller operations. Marcus Blackwood. The name alone made James's jaw tighten. The man ran his ranch like a kingdom and himself like a king. Every business in Bismarck owed him something. Every politician knew better than to cross him. And for 2 years now, Blackwood had been trying to buy Silver Creek. "Harrison," the voice came from behind, smooth as oil on water. James turned to find Blackwood himself standing there dressed in a suit too fine for a Tuesday in Dakota. 2 ranch hands flanked him, more bodyguards than workers. "Blackwood," James said, keeping his voice neutral, "heard you had some trouble keeping hands this winter." Blackwood's smile did not reach his eyes. "Lost 2 men, didn't you? Ranch work isn't for everyone." "Indeed." Blackwood stepped closer, lowering his voice as if sharing a confidence between friends. "I have a proposal for you, Harrison. $12,000 for Silver Creek. Cash. Today if you want it." James had heard this song before. The number changed, but the tune stayed the same. "Ranch isn't for sale." "Everything is for sale," Blackwood countered. "You just haven't found your price yet." "Look, Harrison, I respect what you have built. I do. But a man alone cannot sustain an operation that size. You need infrastructure, capital, partners." The implication hung heavy in the summer air. Partners meaning Blackwood, infrastructure meaning Blackwood's money, capital meaning Blackwood's control. "I said no, Blackwood." Something cold flickered across the older man's face. "Your funeral, Harrison. But when you fail, and you will fail, do not say I did not warn you. This territory is not kind to stubborn men." Blackwood turned and walked away, his bodyguards following like well-trained dogs. James stood there for a moment, hand clenched into a fist at his side. He felt it then, clear and sharp. Anger. Real, honest anger. The first genuine emotion he had felt in 3 years. It should have scared him. Instead, it felt almost like waking up. Sheriff Tom Miller caught him as he was untying his horse. The lawman looked tired, his face lined from too many years of trying to keep order in a town that loved chaos. "James," the sheriff said. "Got a minute?" "What is it, Tom?" "Rustlers hit the Peterson place last night. Took 40 head. Professional job. Clean. Fast." James felt his gut tighten. "How many men?" "Tracks showed 6 riders, maybe 7. They knew what they were doing." Miller spat tobacco juice into the dirt. "I am telling every rancher in the territory, keep your eyes open. These are not amateurs." "Blackwood." The sheriff's expression did not change, but his eyes said everything. "Cannot prove it, but it is interesting how the ranches getting hit are all ones Blackwood has made offers on." James nodded slowly. So that was the game. Buy or be destroyed. Blackwood was not just squeezing out competition. He was actively eliminating it. "Thanks for the warning, Tom. Watch yourself, James. Blackwood plays for keeps." As if James needed reminding, he mounted his horse ready to ride back to Silver Creek and the safe numbness of work. Then he heard the shouting. The voice came from the livery stable male and dismissive. James recognized the owner, a thick-built man named Thornton, who thought muscle made up for brains. "We need someone stronger, miss. A lady of your delicate constitution would not last a week hauling feed and water." The woman's voice came next, controlled but strained, the same woman James had seen earlier. "I hauled water for 30 schoolchildren every day in Philadelphia. I am stronger than I look." Thornton laughed, the sound ugly and condescending. "Sorry, sweetheart. Try the saloon. Morrison always needs girls for entertainment." "I am a certified teacher, Mr. Thornton." "Not entertainment." The door slammed. James watched as she emerged, face flushed, but head still high. Her hands trembled slightly as she clutched that worn carpet bag, but she did not let her shoulders slump. Pride intact despite humiliation. Dignity maintained despite rejection. Something in James's chest twisted painfully. He told himself to ride on. Her problems were not his problems. He had enough troubles managing Silver Creek without taking on someone else's burdens, but he did not ride on. Instead, he found himself following at a distance, watching as she made her way down the street. Part of him recognized what he was seeing, desperation wrapped in determination, the look of someone down to their last chance but refusing to show it. 15 minutes later, she approached the Silver Dollar Saloon. James dismounted and pretended to check his saddle while keeping her in view. Jack Morrison, the saloon owner, came outside when she knocked. His eyes traveled over her in a way that made James's hands ball into fists. "Looking for work, honey." Morrison's grin showed too many teeth. "I heard you might need a bookkeeper or someone to manage accounts." Morrison laughed. "A woman. Working in a saloon, you would be eaten alive, sweetheart. Unless—" He let the implication hang there, his meaning clear as glass. The woman cut him off. "I am looking for respectable work, Mr. Morrison. Good day." She turned and walked away before he could respond. Morrison called after her something crude that made James take a step forward. But the woman did not acknowledge it, just kept walking with that same straight spine and lifted chin. 2 rejections. James could see the weight of them in how she held herself now just a little more carefully, as if one more blow might shatter something vital. "Do not do it," he told himself. "Do not get involved." But he kept watching. 20 minutes later she stood inside Thornhill's Mercantile. James could see through the front window as Arthur Thornhill showed her the account ledgers. For a moment hope flickered across her face. She said something about mathematics, about teaching, about qualifications. Then Mrs. Thornhill appeared from the back room. Even through the glass James could read the scene. The wife's cold stare, the husband's apologetic shrug, the woman's shoulders finally starting to bow under the weight. The door opened. She came out. This time she did not walk purposefully down the street. This time she stood there looking lost and defeated and utterly alone. James saw her reflection in the Mercantile window, saw her fighting tears, saw her losing. And for the first time in 3 years, James Harrison made a choice based not on duty or routine or the simple mechanics of survival. He made a choice because he cared. "Looks like you are having a rough day, ma'am." The woman spun around startled. Up close, James could see she was younger than he had thought. Mid-20s, maybe. Her face showed the kind of exhaustion that came from fighting too hard for too long, but her eyes were clear. Angry, yes. Hurt, certainly. But not broken. Not yet. "Nothing I cannot manage, sir," she said, her voice sharp with defensive pride. "Could not help but notice you leaving Thornhill's with that same look a banker gives a man asking for a loan during drought season." James kept his voice gentle the way he would with a spooked horse. "3rd place today by my count." Her spine stiffened. "Have you been following me?" "No, ma'am. Just conducting my own business around town." He removed his hat, the gesture his mother had taught him before the war took everything gentle from the world. "Name is James Harrison. I run Silver Creek Ranch about 15 miles west of here." She studied him with those clear eyes, assessing, judging. He could see her weighing whether he was another threat or possibly maybe something else. "Catherine Brennan," she said finally. "People call me Kate." Kate. The name suited her. Simple, strong, no nonsense. James saw details now that distance had hidden. Her hands bore calluses, the kind that came from real work, not parlor games. Her clothes were worn, but meticulously maintained, each button in place, each seam carefully mended. She stood straight, despite obvious exhaustion. Whatever else Kate Brennan was, she was a fighter. "What kind of work are you looking for, Miss Brennan?" The question seemed to catch her off guard. Her mouth opened closed. For a moment, vulnerability cracked through her armor. "I am a certified teacher," she said, and James heard the pride threading through those words. "I taught for 2 years in Philadelphia before I decided to seek opportunities in the West." The careful phrasing told James there was more to the story. People did not come west for opportunities unless the East had stopped offering any. But he did not push. Every soul in this territory carried scars they did not show. "Teaching credentials do not mean much out here when there is no proper school," James said. Then, watching her face carefully, he added, "But education, that is something else entirely." Her eyes narrowed slightly, waiting for the mockery, the dismissal, the rejection. It did not come. "Miss Brennan," James continued, "I have 3 ranch hands who can break the wildest Mustang you have ever seen but cannot read a single word on a wanted poster. I have a cook who makes biscuits that would make you weep with joy but cannot write down his recipes to save his life. And I have account books that look like a tornado hit a hen house." He saw the corner of her mouth twitch. almost a smile. Almost. Silver Creek needs someone who can teach my men their letters, keep proper books, and maybe help organize things that have gotten away from me these past few years. He paused, then added the part he knew mattered most. There is a small cabin. It was built for the previous owner's mother. It is yours if you are interested. Pays $40 a month plus room and board. Kate Brennan went very still. $40 was good money. Excellent money, really, for a woman in 1883. But James could see her mind working, calculating not just the money but the cost. An unmarried woman living on a ranch with a dozen men. The scandal, the assumptions. What would your wife think of this arrangement, Mr. Harrison? The question drove straight to the heart of it, as he had known it would. Any intelligent woman would ask it. Pain flickered through James's chest, sudden and sharp, as it always was when someone mentioned Sarah. But he had learned to control his face to keep the grief buried deep where it could not hurt anyone. No wife, Miss Brennan. His voice stayed level through long practice. Lost Sarah to fever 3 years back. It is just me and a dozen cowhands trying to build something worthwhile out of dust and cattle. Understanding dawned in Kate's eyes. Not pity, thank God. James could not have borne pity, but recognition, the look of someone who understood loss. I would need references, Mr. Harrison, she said carefully, and assurances regarding my safety and propriety. Smart woman, practical woman. James approved. Sheriff Miller has known me 7 years, bank manager too. Both will vouch for my character. He met her eyes directly. As for propriety, your cabin is your own with a lock on the door. Meals are taken in the main house, but there is a separate dining room if you prefer privacy, and any man who shows you disrespect answers to me. The steel in his voice on those last words was not feigned. James had learned in the war that some things required absolute clarity. This was one of them. Kate Brennan studied him for a long moment. James let her look, let her assess, let her decide. Whatever choice she made, it had to be hers, freely given. I need a day to consider your offer, she said finally. Fair enough. James reached into his vest pocket and extracted a simple business card with directions to Silver Creek written in his rough hand. I will be heading back tomorrow afternoon. If you decide to accept, meet me at the livery stable at 1 o'clock. If not, no hard feelings. He started to turn away, then paused, looking back at this woman with her worn carpetbag and her unbowed spirit. Miss Brennan, he said quietly, whatever you decide, do not let Bismarck convince you that education is not valuable out here. The West needs more than just strong backs to be tamed. He left her standing there in the dusty street, the afternoon sun painting her shadow long across the ground. As James mounted his horse, he felt something unfamiliar stirring in his chest. Not quite hope. Hope was too dangerous, too likely to lead to disappointment. But something, a possibility, a crack in the ice that had frozen his heart for 3 long years. He rode toward Silver Creek without looking back, but he thought about clear eyes and straight shoulders all the way home. Kate Brennan sat in her small rented room at Mrs. Holloway's boarding house and stared at the list she had made. 2 columns, practical, logical. The way she had been taught to make decisions before her world fell apart. Reasons to refuse James Harrison's offer filled the left side of the page. The risks seemed endless, living with a dozen strange men, isolation 15 miles from town, no escape if things went wrong, the scandal that would follow her forever, the assumptions people would make. The right column held only 3 words, $40 monthly, but those 3 words carried weight. $40 meant survival. It meant not starving. It meant not having to choose between boarding house rent and eating. It meant possibly a future that extended beyond next week's desperation. Kate set down her pen and looked at the room around her. Tiny, cramped, the wallpaper peeling in one corner, the window overlooking an alley where drunks pissed against the wall at night. This was what Philadelphia had led to. This was what her father's failed investments and her mother's consumption and her own pride had bought her. $20 and a teaching certificate nobody wanted, She stood and walked to the window. Bismarck spread below her and the gathering dusk lights beginning to flicker in windows and saloons. Somewhere down there, respectable people were sitting down to dinner with their respectable families in their respectable homes. They would not be thinking about the woman at Mrs. Holloway's. They would not care that she existed. Kate had learned this lesson already. The world did not care. It did not matter how hard you worked, or how qualified you were, or how desperately you needed a chance. The world made its judgments based on things you could not control, then moved on without looking back. But James Harrison had looked at her, really looked. Not at her worn dress or her obvious poverty or her scandalous situation as an unmarried woman traveling alone. He had looked at her and seen value, seen possibility, asked what she wanted instead of telling her what she could not have. Kate picked up the business card he had given her. Heavy stock paper, expensive for a rancher to carry. The directions were written in masculine handwriting, a bit rough but perfectly legible. 15 miles west. Take the North Fork at Miller's Creek. Look for the sign. Simple, straightforward, like the man himself. She thought about his eyes when he mentioned his dead wife. That flash of pain quickly controlled. A man who had loved and lost and somehow kept going. Kate understood that. She had held her mother's hand as consumption slowly drowned her from the inside, had watched the light fade from eyes that used to sparkle with intelligence and humor, had felt the exact moment when her mother's breathing stopped and the world became a colder, lonelier place. Nobody warned you that grief did not end. It just became part of the landscape you learned to navigate. A knock on the door interrupted her thoughts. "Mrs. Holloway's voice carried through the thin wood, sweet as poisoned honey. "Miss Brennan, might I have a word?" Kate opened the door. The boarding-house owner stood there with her practiced smile and calculating eyes, taking in every detail of Kate's room with a glance that missed nothing. "I heard you were making inquiries about Mr. Harrison," Mrs. Holloway said, not bothering with preamble. "At the sheriff's office, the bank." Of course she had. Nothing stayed private in a town this size. "I was checking references for potential employment." "My dear," Mrs. Holloway's voice dripped concern, "I feel obligated to warn you. An unmarried woman going to work at a ranch living among rough men, your reputation would be utterly destroyed." Kate met the older woman's eyes steadily. "I appreciate your concern, Mrs. Holloway. Of course, if you have no other options." The implication hung heavy between them. Poor thing. Desperate thing. Foolish thing. "I am quite capable of making my own decisions," Kate said firmly. "Was there anything else?" Mrs. Holloway's smile tightened. "No, dear. I just wanted to be sure you understood the consequences of such a choice." After the woman left, Kate returned to her window and her thoughts. She had gone to the sheriff's office that afternoon, had asked Tom Miller directly about James Harrison's character. The lawman had leaned back in his chair and studied her for a long moment before answering. "James Harrison is the most honest man in this territory," Miller had said finally. "Stubborn as hell, but fair. He lost his wife young and it nearly broke him. That ranch is the only thing keeping him going." "But can he be trusted?" Kate had pressed. "Around a woman working for him?" "Ma'am, if James Harrison made you an offer, it is because he needs help and thinks you can do the job, not because of anything else." The sheriff's voice had been absolutely certain. "He is not that kind of man." The bank manager had said similar things, praised Harrison's business sense, mentioned how Silver Creek was one of only 3 ranches to survive the brutal winter of 1880 to 81 because James had planned ahead, built reserves prepared for catastrophe. "Smart man," the banker had said. "Cannot keep a ledger worth a damn, but smart about the things that matter." Kate looked down at her list again, added a new entry to the right column. He asked what I wanted. Such a simple thing, such a revolutionary thing. Nobody else had asked. They had told her what she could not have, what she was not qualified for, what society would not accept. James Harrison had asked what she wanted and then offered her a way to have it. Kate picked up her pen and began to write a letter. Not to James Harrison. That decision required a face-to-face answer. No, this letter went to her dead mother the way Kate always wrote when decisions felt too heavy to carry alone. "Dearest Mama," she wrote, "I am being offered a chance. It is not the chance I imagined when I came west. It is dangerous and scandalous and possibly the worst decision I could make. But it is a chance. And I think you would tell me to take it. The world did not break us, Mama. It tried, but we stayed strong. I will stay strong now. I will take this chance and make something of it. I promise." She folded the letter and tucked it into her mother's Bible where all the other undelivered letters lived. Then Kate Brennan packed her few belongings, paid Mrs. Holloway for the week, and went to bed early. She had an appointment to keep tomorrow at 1 o'clock. And for the first time since leaving Philadelphia, Kate fell asleep feeling something that might have been hope. Beat 5. The arrival. The livery stable smelled of hay and horse sweat and leather oil when Kate arrived at 12:45. She had not wanted to be late, had not wanted to give James Harrison any reason to reconsider his offer. She found him already there, loading supplies into a sturdy wagon. He looked different in working clothes, broader, somehow more solid, like a man built from the same timber as the barn around them. When he spotted her approaching, his face did something Kate had not seen before. He smiled, not a big smile, nothing showy or false, just a slight upturn at the corners of his mouth and a warming in those blue eyes that had seemed so cold and distant yesterday. "You decided to take a chance on Silver Creek," he said, taking her carpetbag before she could protest. "I decided to take a chance on myself, Mr. Harrison." Kate climbed onto the wagon seat, arranging her skirts with as much dignity as traveling clothes allowed. "Silver Creek simply seems the place to do it." That smile deepened just a fraction. "Fair enough. And it is still James, by the way. Mr. Harrison was my father, and he was a considerably more serious man than I try to be." They pulled out of Bismarck with the afternoon sun warm on their shoulders. The town fell away behind them, giving way to rolling prairie that stretched endless in every direction. Grass the color of gold. Sky so blue it hurt to look at. Emptiness that felt both terrifying and liberating. Kate had grown up in Philadelphia, where buildings crowded together and streets ran in orderly grids, and you were never more than shouting distance from another human being. This land felt like the opposite of everything she knew, vast, uncontrolled, indifferent to human comfort or convenience. "It is beautiful," she said, surprising herself. James glanced at her. "Most people from the East find it empty." "Empty and beautiful are not contradictions." "No," he agreed. "I suppose they are not." They rode in comfortable silence for a while. Kate found herself studying the man beside her when she thought he was not looking. He handled the reins with easy competence, his movements economical, no wasted motion. A man who had spent years learning exactly how much force was needed, how much was too much. She noticed scars on his hands, old ones white against sun-browned skin, working scars probably, but also something else. A thicker line across his right knuckles that looked like it might have come from a blade or broken glass. "May I ask a personal question?" Kate said. "You can ask. I reserve the right not to answer." "Fair." "Were you in the war?" James's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. A long moment passed before he responded. "Virginia Regiment," he said finally. "Enlisted at 17. Came out at 21 feeling about 100 years old." Kate waited. Sometimes silence invited more than questions. "Saw things nobody should see." James continued, his voice distant now, as if speaking from a long way off. "Did things I wish I could forget. When it ended I could not go back home. Too many ghosts." He paused, then added, "So I rode west, Texas, Kansas, Montana, anywhere cattle needed moving. Saved enough to claim land under the Homestead Act in 1880. And built Silver Creek. Started building it anyway. Still building, really. Ranch work never ends. There is always something needing fixing or improving or just keeping from falling apart." Kate heard the weight in those words. Not just about the ranch, about life itself, about the constant effort required to maintain anything worth having. "How did you meet Sarah?" she asked gently. James was quiet for so long that Kate thought she had pushed too far. Then he spoke, and his voice carried a softness she had not heard before. Her father owned Thornhill's Mercantile before Arthur took over. I came in to buy supplies, and there she was, counting inventory. She had ink on her fingers and numbers running through her head, and when she looked up and saw me, she smiled like I was not just another customer. A ghost of that smile touched his face now. We were married within 3 months. She loved books, loved this land, wanted to build a school someday, teach children proper. She used to read to me in the evenings, Dickens mostly, sometimes Twain. She sounds remarkable. She was. James swallowed hard. Fever took her our second winter. Started as a cold, turned into something worse. Doctor tried everything. 6 months married, and she was gone. Kate saw his hands tighten on the reins, saw the muscle jumping in his jaw as he fought to control emotion that wanted to break free. I nearly gave up everything after, he admitted. Sam Tucker, my cook, you will meet him. He found me with a gun one night. Winter of '81. Talked me down. Made me promise to at least try to keep going. I am glad he did, Kate said softly. James looked at her, then really looked. So am I, especially now. The moment hung between them, fragile and important. Kate felt her heart beating faster, felt something shifting in the space between stranger and something else, something unnamed, something possible. What brought you west? James asked, clearly wanting to change the subject from his own ghosts. Kate considered lying, considered the pretty version of her story that painted everything in soft colors and avoided ugly truths. But James had given her honesty. She owed him the same. My father made bad investments, she said. Lost the farm, lost everything, really. My mother got sick from the stress, consumption. I worked 2 jobs while teaching, trying to keep us afloat. She died in January. The words came easier than Kate expected, maybe because she was telling them to someone who understood loss. There was nothing left in Philadelphia, she continued. No family, no prospects, just memories of everything that used to be and could never be again. So I came west with $20 and a hope that someone somewhere might value education enough to give me a chance. And 3 men turned you down in one day. Kate laughed, but it came out bitter. 3 men who did not even consider what I could offer, just saw an unmarried woman and made their judgments. Their loss, James said firmly, and my gain if you will have patience with a half-wild ranch and a boss who does not know proper bookkeeping from chicken scratch. I think I can manage that. They rode on as the sun began its slow descent toward the western horizon. The land changed around them, subtle shifts Kate would not have noticed a few hours ago. The grass grew taller here. Trees appeared in clusters near water. The earth showed signs of cultivation of human hands trying to impose order on wilderness. Then Silver Creek Ranch appeared before them, and Kate's breath caught. James had called it small, had made it sound humble, barely holding on. But Kate saw buildings that spoke of care and planning. A main house built from sturdy logs, the chinking between them fresh and well-maintained. A barn large enough for dozens of horses. A bunkhouse that looked solid and weatherproof. Corrals where horses stood in various stages of training, their coats gleaming in the late afternoon light. And beyond it all, cattle. Hundreds of them grazing across grassland that rolled like waves toward distant hills. It is larger than I expected, Kate said. Pride touched James's voice. Started with 50 head of cattle in a lean-to for shelter. Now we have 500 head, 2,000 acres, and a Northern Pacific Railroad contract. Built it piece by piece over 3 years. Kate heard what he did not say. Built it while grieving. Built it while broken. Built it because work was all he had left. It is remarkable, she said honestly. James pulled the wagon to a stop in the yard. Immediately men began emerging from various buildings, curious faces, assessing eyes. Kate felt them taking her measure, judging whether she would last a week or fold under the first real challenge. Let them judge. She had been judged before. She would prove them wrong, same as she had proved wrong every person who underestimated her. "Boys," James called out, his voice carrying easy authority. "This is Miss Kate Brennan. She is joining us as teacher and bookkeeper. You will show her the same respect you would show your own mothers. We clear on that?" A chorus of "Yes, boss" answered him. One older man stepped forward, gray streaking his beard, eyes warm with welcome. "Miss Brennan, I am Sam Tucker, cook and general nuisance according to most of these young bucks." Kate smiled despite her nervousness. "A pleasure to meet you, Mr. Tucker." "Just Sam, miss. Only Mr. around here is the boss, and that is only when he is in trouble." James snorted. "Sam has been with me since Texas. Do not let his friendly manner fool you. He is the most cantankerous man north of the Mason-Dixon when the coffee runs out." "Slander and lies," Sam retorted, but his eyes twinkled. He turned back to Kate. "I aired out the cabin for you, miss. Put fresh linens on the bed. Supper will be ready in about an hour if you want to settle in first." "Thank you, Sam. That is very kind." James climbed down and came around to help Kate from the wagon. His hands were gentle but strong as he lifted her down, and for just a moment they stood close enough that Kate could see the exact color of his eyes, blue like summer sky, blue like hope. Then he stepped back, breaking the moment. "I will show you to your quarters. You can get settled before supper." He picked up her carpetbag and led her across the yard toward a small structure set about 50 yards from the main house. Close enough for safety, far enough for privacy. Kate followed, acutely aware of eyes watching from barn and bunkhouse, making judgments, drawing conclusions. Let them. She had nothing to hide and nothing to be ashamed of. The cabin was small but well built. One room maybe 12 feet by 15. A cast-iron stove in the corner already laid with kindling ready to light. A narrow bed with a patchwork quilt. A sturdy table with 2 chairs. And against one wall a bookshelf filled with volumes that made Kate's breath catch. "These were Sarah's," James said quietly, setting down her carpetbag. "Thought you might appreciate them more than they have been appreciated gathering dust in the main house." Kate moved to the shelves, running her fingers over familiar spines. Dickens, Austen, poetry by Whitman and Longfellow, practical volumes on gardening and household management. "This is very generous." She managed her voice thick with emotion. "They should be read," James said simply. "Sarah would want that." He moved toward the door, then paused. "Supper is at 6 in the main house. The men eat there too, but there is a separate dining room if you would prefer." "I think I would like to eat with everyone," Kate said, "if that is acceptable." Something that might have been approval flickered in James's eyes. "More than acceptable. I will see you at 6 then." After he left, Kate stood in the middle of her new home and let herself feel everything she had been holding back. Fear, hope, exhaustion, relief. They washed over her in waves, and she did not fight them. For the first time since her mother died, Kate Brennan had a home. Not much of one, maybe, but hers. A place with a door that locked and books to read and the promise of work that mattered. She unpacked her few belongings, hanging her spare dress on a peg, arranging her mother's Bible, and writing materials on the table. Everything she owned fit in this small space with room to spare. But it was enough. It had to be enough. Because Kate Brennan had learned the hard way that you cannot build a future on what you have lost. You could only build with what remained. And she intended to build something lasting. Dawn came early to Silver Creek Ranch, painting the eastern sky in shades of pink and gold that reminded James of blood and promise in equal measure. He stood on the porch of the main house, coffee cup warming his hands, and watched as lamplight flickered to life in Kate's cabin. She had been here 5 days now, 5 days of watching her prove every assumption wrong. The first morning, 3 ranch hands had shown up for the reading lesson she offered. By the 3rd day, that number had doubled. Now every man not actively working cattle found reasons to be on the porch when Kate brought out her slate and chalk. James should have been in the barn checking tack. Instead, he found himself drifting closer, pretending to inspect fence posts while listening to Kate's patient voice explaining the difference between B and D. "Think of it this way. she was saying to a hand named Cooper, a man of 30 who could rope a steer at full gallop but had never learned his letters. B has its belly in front, D has its belly in back. The letter faces the direction the sound goes in your mouth. Cooper's face lit with understanding. Like this. He scratched something in the dirt with a stick. Perfect, Kate said, and the genuine warmth in her voice made something in James's chest tighten. She did not condescend, did not make these grown men feel foolish for not knowing what children learned. She treated their effort with the same respect she would give a university student, and they responded to it like flowers turning toward sun. "Boss is watching again," Sam Tucker murmured from beside James, appearing silent as smoke despite his age. "Checking fence posts," James said without looking away from the porch. Fence posts." Sam's tone suggested he was not fooled even slightly. "Same way you have been checking those same 3 posts every morning for 5 days now." James finally tore his gaze away and glared at his old friend. "Do not you have biscuits to burn or something? Already done, which you would know if you had come to breakfast instead of standing out here mooning over the new teacher." "I am not mooning." "Son, I have known you since you were barely shaving. I know mooning when I see it." Sam's voice softened. "It is okay to feel again, James. Sarah would not want you frozen forever." The words hit harder than any fist. James opened his mouth to argue, to deny, to push Sam away, like he had pushed away everyone who tried to get too close. But he could not. Because Sam was right. James was watching Kate Brennan the way a drowning man watches the surface of the water, desperate and hopeful and terrified in equal measure. That afternoon, Kate tackled the account books. James had warned her, had tried to prepare her for the disaster that 3 years of grief and neglect had created. But nothing could truly prepare someone for the chaos that filled those ledgers. He found her in his office 2 hours later, surrounded by paper, her hair escaping its pin's ink smudged on her cheek. She looked up when he entered, and her expression made him stop in the doorway. "James," she said, and there was something in her voice. Not anger, not quite. "These are not account books. This is archaeological evidence of ancient chaos." He bristled despite himself. "I know they are bad." "They are not bad." Kate picked up one of the ledgers, flipping through pages. "They are fascinating. I have never seen anyone record the same transaction 3 different ways in 3 different places each time with different numbers." "Are you mocking me?" She looked up, meeting his eyes directly. "No. I am impressed you built this ranch despite bookkeeping that would give a banker nightmares." For a long moment, James just stared at her. Then, surprising himself more than anyone, he laughed. Really laughed. The sound felt rusty from disuse, but it came out genuine and warm and completely unexpected. Kate smiled a real smile that reached her eyes and transformed her whole face. "There. That is better. I was beginning to think you had forgotten how." "Maybe I had," James admitted. "It has been a while." They worked together for the next hour, Kate asking questions about transactions, James trying to remember what he had been thinking when he made various notations. More than once they both ended up laughing at the complete nonsense past James had written. "What does this even say?" Kate held up a page. "It looks like you were writing while being attacked by chickens." "I might have been. It was a difficult spring." As the sun began to set, painting the office in amber light, Kate sat back and rubbed her eyes. "I think I can make sense of most of this. But James, there is something you need to see." Her tone had changed. Gone was the humor, replaced by something serious, concerned. "What is it?" Kate spread several pages across the desk, pointing to entries she had marked in pencil. "These transactions, small amounts, $5 here, 10 there, always in different categories, always just under the threshold that would attract attention." James leaned closer, studying the numbers. His stomach began to tighten. "Someone has been stealing from you," Kate said quietly. "Not a lot. Not enough to destroy you, but consistently. Over about 18 months, I estimate roughly $350 gone." The anger came swift and hot, familiar as an old wound. James's hands clenched into fists. "Who?" I do not know yet. I need to cross-reference handwriting check who had access to the money box during these periods. She hesitated. James, I could be wrong. I need more time to be certain. But she was not wrong. James could see it in her eyes in the careful way she had laid out the evidence. Someone on his ranch, someone he trusted, had been stealing from him. Keep investigating, he said, his voice tight with controlled fury. But quietly. I do not want whoever it is to know we are on to them. Kate nodded. I will be discreet. After she left, James stood alone in his office staring at those damning numbers. $350. Not enough to bankrupt him, but more than enough to matter. More than enough to feel like betrayal. He thought about his men. Thought about which of them might be desperate enough, angry enough to steal. The answer made him feel sick. But he would find out. And when he did, there would be consequences. The ranch felt different that night. Tainted. James went through the motions at supper, making conversation when required, but his mind churned with suspicion and anger. He caught Kate watching him across the table. Her eyes held understanding. She knew what this cost him, the erosion of trust that came with discovering betrayal. Later, walking her back to her cabin under a sky thick with stars, neither of them spoke until they reached her door. I am sorry, Kate said softly. I know how it feels when someone you trust hurts you. Do you? She smiled, but it was sad. My father's business partner stole everything. That is what destroyed us, not bad investments. Theft dressed up as legitimate transactions. James felt something shift in his chest. Did they catch him? No. He was too clever, and we did not have enough proof. Her hands twisted together. But I learned to read numbers after that. Learned to see the patterns that hide in plain sight. I will not let that happen to you, James. I promise. The fierceness in her voice, the absolute certainty, made James want to do something reckless. Like take her hand, like pull her close, like kiss away the sadness in her eyes. Instead, he just nodded. Thank you, Kate. Good night, James. He walked back to the main house feeling like something fundamental had changed. Not just the discovery of theft, but the way Kate had said his name. The way she looked at him like she saw more than the shell of a man going through motions. She saw possibility. And God help him, so did he. Beat 8. The Confrontation. 3 days later, Kate came to James after dark. He was in his office trying to distract himself from financial concerns with a book he was not really reading. When he looked up and saw her expression, he knew she had found something. It was not one of your current men, she said without preamble. Or rather, it was not their idea. James set down his book. Explain. Kate spread papers across his desk, her movements precise and controlled. The handwriting matches entries from about a year ago before you changed account systems. I cross-referenced with old payroll records, Thomas Bennett. The name hit James like a fist. Thomas Bennett, Cole's brother, a man James had fired for showing up drunk one too many times. Cole's brother, James said flatly. Yes, but there is more. Kate pulled out another ledger. This one James did not recognize. I found this in the tack room, hidden under some old saddle blankets. It is Cole's personal accounts. He has been paying back the money, every month small amounts from his wages. James stared at the numbers, at the evidence of Cole trying to make right his brother's wrong, trying to restore what had been stolen without anyone knowing. He has been covering for Thomas, James said, and paying the price for it, Kate added. Look at the dates. He has been doing this for 6 months. That is why he always works the extra shifts, why he never goes into town with the others. He is trying to fix this without anyone knowing. Anger warred with something else in James's chest. Betrayal, yes, but also understanding. Cole was protecting family. Misguided maybe, wrong certainly, but James understood the impulse. I need to talk to him, James said. Now. They found Cole in the barn working late on a saddle repair by lamplight. When he saw James and Kate together holding papers, the color drained from his face. Boss, he said, setting down his tools. "I can explain." "Then explain," James said, keeping his voice level through sheer force of will. Cole looked at Kate, then back at James. "You know, do not you, about Thomas?" "We know he stole. We know you have been paying it back." James crossed his arms. "What I do not know is why you thought lying to me for 6 months was the right choice." "He is my brother." The words came out raw and desperate. "I know what he did was wrong. I know I should have told you. But he was drinking because his wife left and he was angry and he made a stupid, terrible choice." Cole's hands clenched into fists. "He is family boss. Only family I have got. I could not just throw him to the law. So I figured if I paid it back, made it right, maybe nobody had to know. Maybe I could fix it without destroying him." "By deceiving me." "Yes." Cole met James's eyes directly. "I know it was wrong. I know you have every right to fire me, maybe even press charges, but I would do it again. Family is family." The barn fell silent, except for the soft sounds of horses shifting in their stalls. James felt Kate watching him, felt the weight of her presence like a steady hand on his shoulder. He thought about family, about the men he had lost in the war, about Sarah, about the way grief could make you do desperate, foolish things to protect what little you had left. "Here is what is going to happen," James said finally. "Tomorrow morning you tell the crew what Thomas did. All of it. No more secrets on this ranch." Cole paled. "Boss, that will shame my family." "Your family shamed itself when Thomas stole from me. You are just acknowledging the truth." James's voice hardened. "But honesty matters more than pride. You should have learned that 6 months ago." "And then," Cole's voice was barely audible, "and then the debt is forgiven. You have paid back enough with extra work and lost wages." James paused. "You stay on Cole, because second chances matter. But no more lies. Ever. We clear." Relief and shame warred on Cole's face. "Yes, boss, we are clear, and thank you, and thank." After Cole left, James and Kate stood alone in the lamplit barn. The weight of the confrontation settled over them like dust. "You did the right thing," Kate said softly. "Did I, or did I just let emotion override judgment? You balance justice with mercy. That is not weakness, James. That is wisdom." He looked at her, then really looked. Ink still smudged her cheek, her hair still escaping its pins, eyes that had seen loss and understood it. A woman who had traveled across a continent with nothing but determination and hope. "How did you get so smart?" he asked. Kate smiled. "Years of making mistakes and learning from them. You could have destroyed Cole tonight, fired him, pressed charges, made an example of him. But you did not." "Should I have?" "No." Her voice was absolutely certain. "You showed your men that you value honesty over perfection, that you understand human weakness, that this ranch is about more than profit." James felt something crack open in his chest, some wall he had been maintaining for 3 years. "If you had been here when Sarah was alive, I think you two would have been friends." "I would have liked that," Kate said. Then more quietly, "But I am glad to be here now, with you." The barn suddenly felt too small, the air too warm despite the cool night outside. James was acutely aware of how close they stood, how easy it would be to close the distance between them, how much he wanted to. "Kate," he started, not sure what he was going to say. The barn door banged open. Sam Tucker stood there breathing hard like he had been running. "James," he said urgently, "we got trouble. Ryder just came in from town. Blackwood is calling for a council meeting tomorrow night, about education standards." The moment shattered. James felt cold reality crash back over him like winter water. "What kind of standards?" Sam's expression was grim. "The kind that require unmarried women teachers to have moral oversight committees. The kind that charge $50 a year for teaching licenses outside town limits." Kate's face went white. "He is targeting me." "He is targeting us," James corrected. "Through you. Because that was how Blackwood operated. You could not attack James directly, so you attacked what he valued. And somehow, in just 2 weeks, Kate Brennan had become something James valued more than he wanted to admit. "We go to that meeting," James said, "together, and we make it clear that Silver Creek will not be pushed around." But as he said it, James felt the old familiar dread settling in his gut. The same feeling he had gotten before battles in the war, before Sarah got sick, before everything he cared about got taken away. The feeling that told him storm clouds were gathering and this time he might not survive what they brought. Beat 9. Blackwood's first move. Marcus Blackwood arrived at Silver Creek 2 days before the council meeting, riding in like he owned the territory and everyone in it. His horse was a pure-blooded stallion that probably cost more than most ranchers made in a year. His clothes were Eastern-cut, expensive wool that had never seen honest work. Everything about him screamed money and power and the absolute certainty that both would get him whatever he wanted. James met him in the yard, making no move to invite him inside. "Blackwood," he said flatly, "what do you want? Just being neighborly Harrison." Blackwood's smile did not reach his eyes. "Heard you hired yourself a schoolmarm. Thought I would stop by and see this miracle for myself." His gaze swept the yard until it landed on Kate, who was teaching a group of hands on the porch. She looked up, met Blackwood's stare without flinching, then deliberately turned her attention back to her students. The dismissal was subtle but unmistakable. Blackwood's smile tightened. Well, well, the rumors were true. He dismounted and walked closer, though James blocked his path to the porch. "Marcus Blackwood, ma'am. I own Double Creek Ranch, largest spread in the territory." "Kate Brennan," she called back coolly. "I teach here and manage the accounts." "A woman doing men's work." Blackwood's tone made it clear he did not approve. "How progressive of you, Harrison." "Miss Brennan is highly qualified," James said, steel threading through his voice. "More qualified than most men I could hire." "Oh, I do not doubt her qualifications." Blackwood's eyes traveled over Kate in a way that made James's hands ball into fists. "I am sure she is very capable, but surely you see the problem with the arrangement. An unmarried woman living among all these rough men. What will people think?" "I do not care what people think." "You should." Blackwood turned back to James. "Reputations matter in civilized society, Harrison, and the territory is becoming more civilized every day. We have standards now. Expectations." He paused, letting the threat hang in the air. "Speaking of which, I wanted to give you advance notice. The council is meeting tomorrow night to discuss new education standards, just common sense regulations, really, making sure teachers are properly vetted and supervised." "By vetted and supervised, you mean controlled." Blackwood's smile widened. "I mean protected. Surely you want Miss Brennan to be protected from scandal and impropriety." "Miss Brennan is perfectly capable of protecting herself." "Is she?" Blackwood glanced back at Kate. "Because from where I stand, she looks like a woman in a precarious position, working for a widower living on his property, no family to speak for her. If something were to happen, who would believe her version of events?" The implication was clear as glass. Blackwood was threatening Kate's reputation, her safety, her entire future with a few carefully chosen words. James took a step forward, close enough that Blackwood had to look up slightly to meet his eyes. When he spoke, his voice was quiet, but absolutely certain. "If anyone tries to harm Miss Brennan's reputation or her person, they will answer to me. Are we clear, Blackwood?" For just a moment, something like fear flickered in the older man's eyes. Then it was gone, replaced by cold calculation. "Crystal clear," Blackwood said. He remounted his horse with easy grace. "See you at the council meeting, Harrison. I do hope Miss Brennan will attend as well. These discussions always benefit from the input of those most affected." He rode off, leaving silence in his wake. Kate came down from the porch, her students dispersing to their work. Up close, James could see the anger simmering in her eyes. "He is going to try to destroy me," she said quietly. "He is going to try to destroy us," James corrected, "because he knows the easiest way to break me is through people I care about." Kate looked at him sharply. "James." "I am not going to let him win Kate. I do not care what ordinances he passes or what committees he forms. You are staying here, and anyone who has a problem with that can go to hell." She smiled despite the situation. That is quite the declaration from a respectable rancher. I stopped being respectable the day I hired an unmarried woman to live on my property. James met her eyes. But I have never regretted it, not for 1 second. The air between them charged with something electric. Kate's cheeks flushed pink, and James realized they were standing very closer than propriety allowed. "We should prepare for tomorrow's meeting," Kate said, her voice slightly breathless. "Figure out what we are going to say." "We?" James asked. "You do not think I am letting you face that council alone, do you?" Fire sparked in her eyes. "This is my fight too, maybe more mine than yours." And there it was, the thing that made Kate Brennan different from anyone James had ever known. She did not hide behind him or expect him to fight her battles. She stood up and demanded her place at the front line. "Together, then," James said. "Together," Kate agreed. But as they walked back to the house to plan their strategy, James could not shake the feeling that Blackwood had more moves to make. That tomorrow's council meeting was just the opening salvo in a war James could not afford to lose. Because losing meant losing Kate. And somewhere over the past 2 weeks that had become unthinkable. Beat 10. The council meeting. Bismarck's town hall smelled of tobacco smoke and old wood and the particular sourness that came from too many bodies packed into too small a space. Every seat was filled with more people standing along the walls. News of the education standards debate had spread fast. Or maybe James thought as he scanned the crowd, Blackwood had made sure it spread. Made sure everyone knew that James Harrison's unmarried woman teacher would be on display tonight. Kate sat beside him, spine-straight hands folded calmly in her lap. She wore her best dress, dark blue wool with careful mending at the cuffs. Her hair was pinned back severely, not a strand out of place. She looked respectable, professional, and completely composed. James knew better. He could see the tension in her shoulders, the slight tremor in her hands before she laced them together. The council members filed in and took their seats at the long table facing the crowd. 5 men, all of them wealthy landowners or businessmen. And at the center, Marcus Blackwood looking pleased as a cat with cream. Mayor Peterson called the meeting to order. A small man with a large voice, he had been mayor for 6 years through a combination of avoiding hard decisions and knowing whose palms to grease. "First order of business," Peterson announced. Proposed Education Standards Act submitted by Council Member Blackwood. Blackwood stood holding papers that probably contained more legal maneuvering than actual concern for education. "Thank you, Mayor. Gentlemen, we find ourselves at a crossroads. The territory is growing, becoming civilized. With that civilization comes responsibility." He paused for dramatic effect. "We must ensure that those entrusted with educating our children meet proper moral and professional standards. To that end, I propose the following ordinance." As Blackwood read, James felt his anger building. The ordinance was elegant in its cruelty. All teachers must register with the town. Unmarried women must have approval from a moral oversight committee. Teaching outside town limits required a $50 annual license. Every provision designed to make Kate's position impossible. When Blackwood finished, murmurs rippled through the crowd, some approving, some uncertain. Mrs. Holloway and her church ladies nodded along like puppets on strings. "The floor is open for discussion," Mayor Peterson said. Mrs. Holloway stood immediately, her voice dripping false concern. "I must speak in support of this ordinance. Miss Brennan's situation at Silver Creek Ranch is deeply unseemly. An unmarried woman living among rough men with no proper supervision." "She has her own cabin," James said loudly, "with a lock on the door." Mrs. Holloway turned to face him, her smile sharp. "And who supervises this arrangement? Who ensures propriety is maintained? A male cook hardly seems adequate protection for a young woman's virtue." "My virtue needs no protection, Mrs. Holloway," Kate said, standing. Her voice carried clear and strong across the room. "And I resent the implication that it does." The hall went silent. Women did not speak at council meetings, did not challenge their elders. did not stand up and demand to be heard. Kate did all three. "I understand your concerns about propriety," she continued, "but I would ask you to consider what I have accomplished in 2 weeks. The men at Silver Creek are learning to read, to write, to calculate fair wages and understand the contracts they sign. Is that not moral improvement?" Pastor Fletcher stood from the back of the room. "Miss Brennan has also been teaching Sunday school at my church. The children adore her. Their parents report marked improvement in reading and behavior. Are we to condemn a woman for serving our community?" Sheriff Miller added his voice. "Half this town has sent their children to Miss Brennan for tutoring. Now we are calling her immoral. That is rich." James felt hope flicker. They had allies, people willing to speak up. Then Blackwood played his trump card. "The issue is not Miss Brennan's teaching ability," he said smoothly. "It is her living situation, an unmarried woman on a ranch full of men. In civilized society, this simply is not done. It creates scandal damages, reputations, sets a poor example for our young ladies." He paused, looking directly at James. "Unless, of course, the situation were to change. If Miss Brennan were properly married under the protection of a husband, then there would be no impropriety to discuss." The implication hit James like a bullet. Blackwood was backing him into a corner. Either admit defeat and lose Kate or do something drastic. The room waited, every eye on James. And in that moment, with Kate standing beside him and Blackwood smirking from the council table and the whole town watching, James made a choice. Not the careful choice, not the strategic choice, the only choice his heart would allow. "Then perhaps that situation should change," he said, his voice carrying to every corner of the packed hall. He turned to Kate. "Miss Brennan, would you do me the honor of becoming my wife?" The silence that followed was absolute. James could hear his own heartbeat thundering in his ears, could see Kate's eyes go wide with shock, could feel the weight of every stare in the room. "James," Kate whispered, "you do not have to do this." "I am not doing it to win a vote, Kate." He kept his voice low but certain. "I am doing it because I should have asked weeks ago. You have brought life back to Silver Creek, back to me. I do not want to lose you to their small-minded gossip." Kate's face cycled through emotions too quickly to name. Shock, confusion, something that might have been hope, but also hurt, anger, the realization that he had just proposed to her as a political strategy in front of the entire town. "Mr. Harrison," she said, her voice carefully controlled, "I appreciate your gallantry, but I will not be proposed to as a political maneuver." She turned to address the council, and James saw steel in every line of her body. "If you wish to discuss marriage proposals, gentlemen, perhaps we should do so in private, not as entertainment for spectators." Then she turned and walked out, head high, back straight, leaving James standing there feeling like he had just made the worst mistake of his life. The murmurs started immediately. Scandalized whispers, shocked gasps, Blackwood's satisfied smile. The vote proceeded, 4-3 in favor of the Education Standards Act. Kate's teaching now required a license she could not afford and approval from a committee that would never grant it. Blackwood had won. But as James walked out into the cool night air, he knew the real damage was not the ordinance. It was the look on Kate's face when he had used their relationship as a weapon against Blackwood's political maneuvering. He found her waiting by the wagon, arms crossed, staring at the stars. "Kate," he started. "Do not," she said quietly. "Just take me home." They rode back to Silver Creek in silence, the kind of silence that felt like a wall being built brick by brick between them. Beat 11. The aftermath and the cattle drive. Kate did not come to breakfast the next morning, or the morning after that. She taught her classes, managed the account books, performed every duty she had been hired for. But the easy warmth that had been growing between them was gone, replaced by cold professional courtesy. James tried to talk to her, tried to explain, but every time he approached Kate found reasons to be somewhere else. Sam watched it all with sad eyes and said nothing. The ranch hands walked on eggshells. Even the cattle seemed to sense the tension. 5 days after the disaster at the council meeting, James prepared for the annual cattle drive. 300 head to the railroad loading station 30 miles away. Normally he looked forward to the drive, the hard work, the clear goals, the simple satisfaction of moving cattle from point to point. This year it felt like running away. He found Kate in the office the night before departure, working late as usual. She looked up when he entered, her expression guarded. "I leave tomorrow," James said. "I know. Miguel has the schedule. Will you be here when I get back?" Kate set down her pen. "Where else would I go? James, I have no money for the license Blackwood's ordinance requires. No family to take me in. No options left." The bitterness in her voice cut deeper than any knife. "So yes, I will be here, fulfilling my contract, doing my job." "Kate, please, let me explain about the proposal." "There is nothing to explain." She stood gathering her papers. "You panicked. Blackwood backed you into a corner and you made a gesture. A public humiliating gesture that reduced our relationship to political theater." "That is not what I meant." "Intent does not matter, James. What matters is that you asked me to marry you in front of the town council instead of having the courage to ask me in private, like I was a problem to be solved instead of a person you cared about." She moved toward the door, but James stepped into her path. "I do care about you," he said fiercely, "more than I have cared about anyone since Sarah died. That is why I panicked, because the thought of losing you, of Blackwood driving you away, it terrified me." Kate's eyes softened slightly. "Then you should have trusted me enough to face that fear together, instead of making grand gestures that solved nothing and hurt everything." "You are right," James admitted. "I was wrong. And when I get back, if you will give me another chance, I will do it right. I will ask you properly, the way you deserve. Do not make promises you are not sure you can keep." But her voice had lost some of its edge. "I am sure, Kate. Maybe that is what scared me. How sure I am." They stood there in the lamplight, close enough to touch, but separated by hurt and pride and fear. "Come back safe," Kate said finally. "The ranch needs you." Just the ranch. A ghost of a smile touched her lips. "Ask me again when you return. Maybe I will have an answer." James left before dawn the next morning. He gathered his crew, counted heads, checked supplies one final time. As they prepared to ride out, he looked back at the main house. Kate stood on the porch, wrapped in a shawl against the morning chill. She raised one hand in farewell. James returned the gesture, then turned his horse west and did not look back again. But he carried the image of her standing there with him for every mile of the journey ahead. The cattle drive went smoothly at first. Clear weather, good grass. The herd moved well, and James's experienced crew handled everything with calm efficiency. They made good time, reaching the railroad station in 8 days instead of the usual 10. The sale went better than expected. Beef prices were high, and the railroad agent was eager to secure future contracts. James walked away with $5,000 in cash and a promise of expanded business next season. He should have felt triumphant. Instead, he felt uneasy. The ride back started well. They made camp the first night in good spirits, the crew joking about how they would spend their pay. James sat apart thinking about Kate, about how to apologize properly, about whether she would even give him another chance. The attack came at dawn on the second day. James woke to gunfire and shouting, scrambled for his rifle as bullets tore through the camp. 6 riders, maybe 7, coming hard and fast out of the rising sun. Rustlers, but not random ones. These men rode with military precision, their attack coordinated and deadly. They were not after cattle. They were after the money. "Protect the saddlebags!" James shouted, firing at the nearest rider. The man went down, but 2 more took his place. The fight was brutal and short. James's men were good, but they had been caught sleeping. 2 of the Harris brothers went down in the first volley. James saw them fall, saw the blood-felt rage and grief war for dominance in his chest. Then pain exploded in his left side. He looked down, saw red spreading across his shirt. A bullet. He had been shot. The world tilted. James fought to stay in the saddle, fought to keep firing, fought to keep breathing through pain that felt like being branded from the inside. His men rallied, drove off the attackers, but the damage was done. 2 men dead, James bleeding, and the absolute certainty that this had not been random. Blackwood. As darkness pulled at the edges of his vision, James's last clear thought was of Kate, of her standing on the porch, of not getting to say what needed saying. Then consciousness slipped away and James fell into black. He came to in the saddle, held upright by one of his men. Every breath sent fire through his side. Every movement threatened to drag him back under. "Boss," the hand said urgently, "stay with us. We are almost home." Home. Silver Creek. Kate. James clung to that thought like a lifeline as his horse carried him through gathering darkness toward the only place that mattered. Beat 12. The Return and the Recovery. The storm hit Silver Creek with biblical fury. Rain lashed the buildings. Thunder shook the ground. Lightning turned night into stuttering daylight. Kate sat in her cabin trying to read, but the words blurred on the page. James had been gone 9 days. Should have been back by now. She told herself not to worry. Cattle drives ran late all the time, but she worried anyway. The pounding on her door came violent and urgent. Kate threw it open to find Miguel soaked to the skin, eyes wild. "Miss Kate Ryder's coming. Something is wrong." They ran through the storm toward the main yard. Through sheets of rain, Kate saw horses emerging from darkness. 5 riders instead of 10. Supporting someone slumped in the saddle between them. James. "What happened?" Kate heard herself shouting, though her voice seemed to come from very far away. "Ambushed!" The ranch hand gasped. "Rustlers hit us returning from the railroad. Boss took a bullet protecting the money." Kate was moving before conscious thought took over. "Get him inside. Miguel, ride for Dr. Pierce. Now." They carried James to his bedroom. Kate had never been in here before, had no time to notice the simple furniture, the photographs on the dresser, the book lying open on the nightstand. All she saw was blood. So much blood. James's shirt was soaked through the bandage someone had improvised, already red and wet. His face was pale as death lips tinged blue. But his eyes found hers, tried to focus. "Kate," he whispered. "Sorry. Meant to come back. Talk." "Stop talking." She commanded her hands, already working to cut away his shirt. "Save your strength." Sam appeared with supplies. Boiling water, clean linens, whiskey. His face was grim but steady. "What do you need, Miss Kate?" "Light. More light. And my sewing kit from the cabin." The wound was bad. Bullet had entered his left side, torn through muscle, but by some miracle missed vital organs. But he was still bleeding, still losing too much blood, and Dr. Pierce was hours away in this storm. Kate made a decision. "I have to stitch him now. He cannot wait for the doctor." "You know how?" Sam asked. "I helped Dr. Williamson in Philadelphia. I have stitched wounds before." What she did not say was that those wounds had been on children. Minor cuts and gashes. Never anything like this. Never a bullet wound. Never someone she cared about bleeding out beneath her hands. But there was no choice. Kate cleaned the wound with whiskey. James screamed, the sound tearing through her like glass. She forced herself to keep working, to stay steady despite trembling hands and tears she refused to let fall. "Talk to me," she said as she threaded the needle. "Stay awake. Tell me about the drive." James's eyes struggled to focus. "Good. Price is high. 5,000 for the herd." "Good." Kate made the first stitch. James tensed, biting back another scream. "What else?" "Thought about you. Every day." His voice was weak but determined. "Thought about what I should have said, what I will say when this is over." "Tell me now," Kate said, making another stitch. Anything to keep him talking, keep him conscious. "I love you." The words came out clear despite pain. "Not because you are convenient, not because you solve problems, because you are brave and smart and you make me want to be better than I am." Kate's hands shook. She forced them steady. You cannot die after saying that. I will not allow it." "Yes, ma'am." James managed something like a smile. Then his eyes rolled back and he went limp. Kate worked faster. 12 stitches total, each one placed with shaking hands and desperate prayers to a God she was not sure was listening. When she finished, she bandaged the wound and checked his breathing. Shallow but steady. Pulse weak but present. He was alive. Kate sank into the chair beside the bed, every bit of strength draining out of her. Her hands were covered in blood. James's blood. The man who had given her hope when she had none. Who had seen her value when everyone else saw only scandal. Who had just told her he loved her while bleeding from a bullet wound. Sam found her like that an hour later. Brought her coffee she did not drink and a blanket she did not feel. "He will make it," Sam said quietly. "James is too stubborn to die." "The Harris brothers," Kate asked, though she already knew from Sam's expression. "Did not make it. Both gone. 2 men dead. 2 families destroyed. All because someone wanted money badly enough to kill for it." "Blackwood," Kate said, "cannot prove it, but the timing is mighty convenient." Dr. Pierce arrived near dawn, looked like he had ridden through hell to get there. He examined James thoroughly, checked Kate's stitching, then nodded with something like approval. "You saved his life, Miss Brennan. If you had waited for me, he would have bled out. The stitching is professional quality. Will he recover fully? Barring infection or complications, yes. 2 weeks complete bed rest, then limited activity for a month after." Kate finally let herself breathe. "Thank you, doctor." "Do not thank me. You did the hard part." Dr. Pierce packed his instruments. "Where did you learn to stitch like that?" "Philadelphia. I assisted Dr. Williamson with his charity work. Learned what I could." "You learned plenty." After the doctor left, Kate returned to James's bedside. She had not left except when forced since they brought him in. Would not leave now. James's color was better, his breathing deeper, but he had not woken since passing out during the stitching. Kate took his hand, the one not connected to bandages and pain, held it between both of hers. "You said you loved me," she whispered. "I need you to wake up so I can tell you I love you too. That I have loved you since you asked what kind of work I was looking for. That I forgive you for the council meeting disaster. That I want another chance at this." His hand remained still, but his breathing stayed steady, and Kate chose to believe that somewhere beneath unconsciousness, James heard her. She stayed there as dawn broke over Silver Creek, stayed as the storm finally passed, stayed because leaving was unthinkable. James Harrison had ridden into an ambush protecting his future, had taken a bullet meant to destroy everything he had built. Kate would not let that sacrifice be in vain. Whatever came next, they would face it together. If he lived, when he lived. Kate held his hand and refused to consider any other possibility. Pain woke James, sharp and insistent like someone had built a fire in his side and forgotten to put it out. He tried to move and the fire blazed hotter. A groan escaped before he could stop it. "James," Kate's voice close and urgent, "do not move. You will tear the stitches." His eyes struggled to focus. The room swam in and out of clarity. His bedroom. Morning light filtered through curtains. And beside the bed, Kate Brennan, looking exhausted and beautiful and absolutely furious. "How long?" His voice came out rough as gravel. 3 days since they brought you back. 2 days since the fever broke." She lifted a cup to his lips. "Drink. Doctor's orders." Water had never tasted so good. James drank greedily, then fell back against the pillows, the small effort leaving him shaking. "The Harris brothers," he asked, though he knew, had known from the moment he saw them fall. Kate's face confirmed it. "I am sorry, James. They did not make it." Grief hit fresh and sharp. Good men, young men, dead because Blackwood wanted to destroy what James had built, dead because money mattered more than lives to men like Marcus Blackwood. "Should have been me," James said, his voice breaking. "They had families in Minnesota, wives, children. Should have been me." "Stop." Kate's hand gripped his with surprising strength. "If you had died, who would have protected your men? who would have brought them home. You fought. You survived. Honor them by living, James, not by wishing for death." The fierceness in her voice cut through his grief like a blade. James looked at her, really looked, saw the shadows under her eyes, the exhaustion lining her face, the blood still staining the cuffs of her dress despite obvious attempts to wash it clean. "You saved me," he said. "I stitched you. Dr. Pierce says if I had waited for him, you would have bled out in the first hour." Her voice wavered. "I could not let that happen. Why not? I humiliated you at the council meeting, proposed like you were a problem to solve instead of a woman I care about." Kate smiled, but tears slipped down her cheeks. "Because you are an idiot sometimes, James Harrison. A well-meaning, occasionally infuriating idiot. But you are my idiot, and I am not ready to lose you." Something loosened in James's chest, something that had been wound tight since the night he made that disastrous public proposal. "I need to tell you something," he said. "Something I should have said in private, not in front of the whole damn town." "Then tell me now." "I love you, Kate Brennan." The words came easier this time, without bullets and blood and darkness pulling at him. "Not because you are convenient or because you solve my bookkeeping problems. I love you because you are the bravest person I have ever known. Because you make me want to be better than I am. Because when I think about the future, you are in every part of it." Kate's tears fell faster. "You said that while I was stitching you. I did not know if you would remember." "I remember. Every word. And I need you to know I meant it. All of it." She leaned forward, pressing her forehead to his. "I love you too. I have loved you since you asked what kind of work I was looking for. Since you saw me when no one else would." They stayed like that for a long moment, foreheads touching, breathing the same air. The world narrowed to just this room, this moment, this truth finally spoken without audience or agenda. Then Kate pulled back, wiping her eyes. "Now that we have that settled, you need to rest, Doctor. Pierce says 2 weeks complete bed rest, or you will tear those stitches and bleed all over everything I just finished cleaning." "Bossy," James muttered, but he was smiling. "You have no idea." She stood smoothing her skirts. "I will bring you something to eat. Sam has been cooking enough soup to feed the entire territory." "Kate." He caught her hand before she could leave. "Thank you for everything." She squeezed his fingers gently. "Thank me by healing. We have plans to make and a ranch to run and a very satisfying revenge to plot against Marcus Blackwood." The steel in her voice reminded James why he had fallen in love with this woman. Kate Brennan did not just endure. She fought back. And God help anyone who got in her way. The next 10 days passed in a haze of pain and healing. James discovered that bullet wounds hurt worse coming out than going in that doctor. Pierce had no sympathy for stubborn patients, and that Kate Brennan was a tyrant when it came to following medical orders. But he also discovered other things. He learned that Kate read to him in the evenings the same books Sarah had loved her voice, turning Dickens and Twain into music. He learned that she had barely left his side for 3 days straight, that Sam had practically forced her to eat and sleep. He learned that his men had taken orders from her without question, that she had kept the ranch running while he lay bleeding. And late at night, when fever dreams turned into nightmares, he learned that Kate could pull him back from darkness with nothing but her voice and her steady hand in his. The nightmares came often. War memories mixing with Sarah's death, mixing with the ambush. James would wake gasping, reaching for weapons that were not there, fighting enemies only he could see. Every time Kate was there. "You are safe," she would say, her voice cutting through panic. "You are at Silver Creek. I am here. You are safe." On the 5th night, after a particularly bad dream left him shaking and sick, Kate did not return to the chair beside his bed. She climbed in next to him, careful of his wound, and held his hand until his breathing steadied. "The war," James said finally. "I thought I had left it behind, but it is still there, waiting." "Tell me," Kate said quietly. So he did. Told her things he had never told anyone. About the boy who had died in his arms calling for his mother. About the field hospital where men screamed for days before death took them. about coming home to a Virginia that did not want him, to family who looked at him like a stranger. "I was 17 when I enlisted," James said, staring at the ceiling. "Thought it would be adventure, glory. I came out at 21 feeling 100 years old." Kate's thumb traced circles on the back of his hand. "The war took your youth. Sarah's death took your hope. But you kept going. You built something from nothing, James. That takes more courage than any battlefield." "Did it? Or was I just too cowardly to stop?" "There is no courage in stopping. Courage is waking up every day and choosing to keep living even when everything hurts." She turned to look at him. "You have been courageous your whole life. You just did not recognize it." James felt something crack open inside him, some wall he had built between himself and the world. "I am tired, Kate. Tired of fighting. Tired of losing people I care about. Tired of being strong when I feel broken." "Then do not be strong tonight." Her voice was gentle. "Just be James. Broken parts and all. I am not going anywhere." So for the first time since Sarah died, James let himself be weak. Let himself cry for the boy he had been and the man he could have become, and all the years lost to grief and war and stubborn refusal to feel. And Kate held him through it. Did not try to fix him or tell him it would be okay. Just stayed. Present. Steady. Real. When the tears finally stopped, James felt emptied out, but strangely lighter. Like he had been carrying weight so long, he forgot it was there until it was gone. "Thank you," he whispered. "For what? For not leaving. For staying when I fell apart." Kate smiled in the darkness. "James, you stayed for me when I had nothing, when the whole town turned against me. The least I can do is stay when you need someone." They fell asleep like that. Kate curled carefully against his uninjured side, their hands clasped together. And for the first time in 3 years, James slept without nightmares. He woke to find Sam Tucker standing in the doorway, arms crossed, trying very hard not to smile. "Morning," the old cook said. "Should I come back later?" Kate sat up quickly, blushing. "Nothing improper happened." "Did not think it did. But Miss Kate, you might want to consider that appearances matter, especially given recent events. Recent events being that I saved his life." Kate climbed out of bed, straightening her rumpled dress with as much dignity as possible. "Recent events being that the whole territory is talking about you two." Sam's expression turned serious. "Blackwood is spreading rumors, saying James's injury proves he cannot handle the ranch, saying unmarried women living on properties leads to scandal and disaster." James sat up, ignoring the sharp pull in his side. "What else is he saying? That the ambush was random, that James was careless, that if he had taken Blackwood's offer and sold Silver Creek, 2 good men would still be alive." Rage, hot and clean, burned through James. "That son of a—" "Language," Kate interrupted. "We have better ways to deal with Blackwood than cursing. Such as—" her smile was sharp enough to cut. "Such as proving he orchestrated the ambush. Such as destroying his reputation the way he tried to destroy ours. Such as making sure justice is served." Sam's eyebrows rose. "You have a plan, Miss Kate." "I am working on one. But first we need James healthy enough to stand trial testimony, and we need evidence that ties Blackwood to the rustlers." "Sheriff Miller caught 3 of them up in Montana," Sam said. "They are talking, trying to cut deals." James felt hope flicker. "What are they saying?" "That they were hired through an intermediary, paid in gold coins." Sam paused. "Gold coins traced to Blackwood's bank. Not enough for a conviction," Kate said, her mind clearly working through possibilities. "But enough to raise questions, enough to investigate." She turned to James, and he saw the same fierce determination that had kept her standing in Bismarck when every door closed in her face. "We are going to trap him, James. Make him confess where people can hear it. And then we are going to watch him pay for what he did to those men, to us." James looked at this woman who had come into his life with nothing but a carpetbag and pride, who had saved him twice now, once from loneliness and once from death, who was planning revenge with the calculating precision of a general planning battle. And he realized that somewhere along the way Kate Brennan had stopped being his employee or even just the woman he loved. She had become his partner, his equal, his future. If she would still have him after everything. Beat 14. The real proposal. 2 weeks after the ambush, Dr. Pierce finally cleared James to leave bed for short periods. The wound was healing well, though it pulled when he moved too fast and would scar ugly and permanent. James did not care. Scars were just proof you survived. He used his first day of freedom to plan. Sam helped him saddle a gentle mare, one that would not jostle his healing side. Kate was in the office working on accounts as she did every afternoon. James had timed this carefully. He found her bent over Ledger's afternoon sun, painting her hair gold. She looked up when he entered, eyes widening. "James Harrison, you are supposed to be resting." "I rested for 2 weeks. Any more resting and I will go mad." He held out his hand. "Come with me, please." Kate studied him suspiciously. "Where?" "Somewhere we can talk. Really talk. Just the two of us." She must have heard something in his voice because she set down her pen and took his hand. "If you tear those stitches, I am going to be very angry." "Noted." They rode out slowly, James grateful for the mare's smooth gait. Kate beside him on a horse she had been practicing with her riding, improving daily. They did not speak. Just let the afternoon wash over them as Silver Creek fell behind. James led them to the southern boundary where a small creek ran through a grove of cottonwood trees. The place Sarah had loved, the place he had avoided for 3 years because memory made it hurt too much. But today, with Kate beside him, it just felt peaceful. They dismounted carefully. James spread a blanket he had brought, settling onto it with a wince. Kate pretended not to notice. "I brought you here for a reason," James said. "To admire the view, to ask you something, properly this time, the way I should have asked before." Kate went very still. "James, let me say this. Please." He took both her hands in his. "When I proposed at the council meeting, I did it for all the wrong reasons. Because I panicked. Because Blackwood backed me into a corner. Because I thought I could solve problems with grand gestures. You were trying to protect me. I was trying to avoid losing you. There is a difference." James met her eyes. "But I am asking now for the right reasons. Because I love you. Because I want to wake up next to you every morning. Because I want to build a life together, not just survive separate ones that happen to overlap." He pulled something from his pocket. A ring. Simple gold band with a single pearl surrounded by tiny diamonds. "This was my mother's. My father gave it to her before the war took everything. It is all I have left of them." Kate's eyes filled with tears. "Kate Brennan, will you marry me? Not because of scandal or council ordinances or Marcus Blackwood's schemes, but because I love you and cannot imagine my future without you in it." For a long moment, Kate said nothing, just looked at him with those clear eyes that had seen through him from the very beginning. Then she smiled through tears and said the words that changed everything. "Yes, yes, I will marry you." James slipped the ring onto her finger. It fit perfectly, like it had been waiting for her all along. Then he pulled Kate close and kissed her. Gentle at first, because his side still hurt and sudden movements were dangerous. But Kate deepened the kiss, her hands threading through his hair, and James forgot about pain and danger and everything except this. When they finally pulled apart, both breathing hard, Kate laughed. "That was much better than the council meeting version." "I should hope so." James traced her cheek with gentle fingers. "Kate, I need you to know something. I loved Sarah. I will always love her. She was my first love, and losing her nearly destroyed me." "I know. But you are not her replacement. You are my second chance. Different, but just as real. And I want to spend the rest of my life proving that I deserve you." Kate's smile was radiant. "You already proved it, James. The day you asked what kind of work I was looking for. The day you saw me when no one else would." They sat there as the sun began its descent, wrapped in each other and the knowledge that everything had changed. The West sprawled around them, vast and wild and full of possibility. Finally Kate stirred. "We should head back before dark. and before Sam sends out a search party. Wait, there is one more thing. James pulled her hand to his lips, kissed her knuckles. I want to get married soon, before winter, before Blackwood has time to cause more trouble. Is that too fast? Are you asking because you want to, or because you think you should? Because I want to, because I almost died without making you my wife, and I do not want to risk that again. Kate studied him for a long moment, then her expression shifted, became uncertain in a way James had never seen. James, there is something I need to tell you, something that might change how you feel about this. Fear spiked through him. Kate, what is it? She took a deep breath. I am pregnant. Beat 15. The revelation. The words hung in the air between them. James stared at Kate, trying to process what she had just said. Pregnant. Kate was pregnant. With his child. How long have you known? He finally managed. Dr. Pierce told me during one of his visits to check on you. About 6 or 7 weeks along, he estimates. Her hands twisted together. From that night after the council meeting, when we were both angry and emotional and not thinking clearly, James's mind raced backward. That night, the argument, the whiskey, the way grief and frustration had combusted into something else entirely. He remembered Kate in his arms, remembered thinking he should stop, remembered not stopping. You thought I would be angry, he said slowly. The timing is terrible. People will say I trapped you, that I got pregnant to force marriage. Her voice shook. That I am exactly the kind of scandalous woman Mrs. Holloway always claimed. Kate, look at me. She raised her eyes, and he saw fear there, real genuine fear that he would reject her, reject their child, walk away from everything because the timing was not perfect, as if he could, as if anything could make him walk away from her now. I just proposed, James said, his voice rough with emotion. Before I knew about the baby, that means something. It does. It means I am marrying you because I love you. The baby is not a trap or a mistake. It is a gift. He placed his hand gently on her still flat stomach. Our child Kate. A family. Something I thought I would never have again. You are not angry. Terrified, yes. Overwhelmed, absolutely. But angry. James pulled her close, careful of his healing wound. Kate, you gave me back my life. You saved me twice over. This baby is not a problem. It is proof that we survived, that we get to build something new. Kate sobbed against his chest, and James held her one hand stroking her hair, while the other remained protectively over where their child grew. The town will talk, she said finally. Let them talk. We will be married within the month. By the time the baby comes, we will be legitimate in every way that matters. James tilted her chin up. Besides, we have bigger problems than gossip. Blackwood, James agreed. He orchestrated that ambush. Killed 2 good men, nearly killed me. He needs to pay for it. Kate's expression hardened. Then we make him pay. We trap him into confessing, and we make sure justice is served. While planning a wedding and preparing for a baby. I have always been good at managing multiple tasks. Her smile was fierce. But James, we need to be smart about this. Blackwood is dangerous. He has money influence connections. We have something he does not. What? The truth, and each other. James kissed her forehead. Let him come. We will be ready. They rode back to Silver Creek as twilight painted the sky purple and gold. Sam was waiting on the porch, arms crossed, trying to look stern and failing. About time you two got back. Was beginning to think you eloped. Not yet, James said, helping Kate down from her horse. But soon. Kate agreed to marry me. Sam's face split into a genuine smile. Well, it is about damn time. Congratulations. Then his eyes sharpened. But I am guessing there is more to the story. There is, Kate said quietly. But it can wait until after supper. Right now I need to sit down before I fall down. James caught Sam's knowing look and nodded slightly. The old cook had been around long enough to read between lines. He would figure it out soon enough. That night, after the crew had eaten and dispersed to evening chores, James and Kate told Sam the full truth. About the pregnancy, about the timeline, about their plans to marry quickly. Sam listened without interrupting, his weathered face giving nothing away. When they finished, he sat back and was quiet for a long moment. "A baby at Silver Creek," he finally said, and his voice was thick with emotion. "Sarah would have loved that." James felt his throat tighten. "You think so?" "I know so. She wanted children, wanted to fill this ranch with laughter and noise and life." Sam looked at Kate. "You are giving James something he thought he had lost forever. That is no small thing." "Thank you, Sam," Kate said softly. "But," Sam continued, his tone turning serious, "you need to marry before that baby shows, not for propriety's sake, for safety. If Blackwood finds out Kate is pregnant and unmarried, he will use it to destroy both of you." "We know," James said. 2 weeks. Can we plan a wedding that fast?" Sam snorted. "Son, I have seen you move 300 head of cattle in less time. We can manage one wedding." They began planning that very night. Small ceremony at the ranch, Pastor Fletcher officiating, Sheriff Miller and Dr. Pierce as witnesses, the crew and a few trusted friends from town. Nothing elaborate, nothing that would give Blackwood ammunition. But as they made lists and discussed details, James felt something he had not felt in years. Joy. Pure, uncomplicated joy at the thought of the future. A future with Kate, with their child, with a family he thought he would never have again. And underneath the joy, a burning determination to make sure Blackwood paid for trying to take it all away. Beat 16. The trap is set. Sheriff Tom Miller arrived at Silver Creek 3 days after the proposal, bringing news that made James's blood run cold and hot in equal measure. "Montana sheriffs got confessions," Miller said, accepting coffee from Sam. "All 3 rustlers talked, said they were hired by a man named Carson. Carson works for Blackwood." "Can you prove the connection?" Kate asked from her place beside James. "Working on it. Carson disappeared after the ambush, but we found bank records. Payments from Blackwood's account to Carson going back 2 years, always for vague services, always in cash." James leaned forward despite the pull in his side. "Enough to arrest Blackwood?" "Not yet. A good lawyer would argue Carson was an independent contractor, that Blackwood had no knowledge of illegal activities." Miller's jaw tightened. "We need more. We need Blackwood to admit what he did where witnesses can hear it." "Then we give him the opportunity," Kate said. Both men looked at her. "We let him think he is winning." She continued, her voice steady and cold. "James is injured. The ranch is struggling. 2 men dead. Perfect time for Blackwood to make another offer on Silver Creek, to gloat, to feel safe enough to brag about how clever he has been." James felt admiration mixed with concern. "You want to set a trap." "I want justice." Kate met his eyes. "Those men died because of Blackwood's greed. He needs to pay for it." Miller nodded slowly. "If we can get him talking, get him to admit his involvement with Carson with the ambush. If we have witnesses." "Pastor Fletcher," James said suddenly. "He would testify. Man of God's word carries weight." "And I would be there," Miller added, "hidden, listening. If Blackwood confesses in front of witnesses, we can arrest him." They spent the next hour planning. James would let word spread that he was considering selling Silver Creek, that the ambush had broken his spirit, that he was ready to give up and move on. Blackwood would come. His arrogance would not let him stay away from the kill. "When?" James asked. "After the wedding," Kate said firmly. "I will not risk this baby or our future on revenge. We get married first, secure our position, then we deal with Blackwood." Sam spoke up from the corner. "Smart. Also gives James more time to heal. Can't confront Blackwood if you can barely stand up." James wanted to argue, but he knew they were right. Revenge required patience, strategy, and he needed to be strong enough to see it through. "After the wedding, then," he agreed. "But before winter, before he has time to cause more damage." Miller stood. "I will make the arrangements. Get Fletcher on board. Make sure we have everything we need legally." He paused at the door. "You too sure about this? Blackwood is dangerous, if he suspects." "He killed 2 of my men," James said quietly. "Nearly killed me. Tried to destroy Kate's reputation and future. I am very sure, Tom." After the sheriff left, Kate leaned against James's good side, careful and gentle. "Are you really sure about this?" she asked. "We could just let him be. Focus on our wedding, our baby, our future." James thought about the Harris brothers, about their families in Minnesota waiting for men who would never come home, about every ranch Blackwood had destroyed through intimidation and violence, about a world where men like Marcus Blackwood faced no consequences for the harm they caused. "I am sure," he said, "justice matters, Kate. For them, for us, for the kind of world we want our child to grow up in." She nodded against his shoulder. "Then we do this right. We plan carefully, we execute perfectly, and we make sure he has no way to escape what he has earned. Together, always together." Beat 17. The wedding. November 15th arrived clear and cold, the kind of Dakota morning that promised winter was coming, but had not quite arrived yet. James woke early, nerves and anticipation making sleep impossible. Today he married Kate Brennan. Today his life truly started over. Sam found him on the porch, watching the sun paint the eastern sky in shades of pink and gold. "Big day," the old cook said, handing over coffee. "Big day," James agreed. "You nervous?" "Terrified." Sam laughed. "Good. Means you are taking it seriously." He settled into the chair beside James. "You know I was worried about you for a long time. After Sarah. After you went so far inside yourself, I thought you might never come back out. I did not think I would either. But Kate found you, pulled you back to the living." Sam's voice turned gentle. "Sarah would have liked her, would have approved." James felt his throat tighten. "You think so? I know so. Sarah wanted you happy, James. Wanted you to build a life worth living. Kate is giving you that chance. Do not waste it." "I do not intend to." The morning passed in a blur of activity. Ranch hands cleaned the main house until it gleamed. Sam prepared food enough to feed twice their number. Flowers appeared from somewhere, prairie blooms that Kate must have requested, arranged in simple vases throughout the rooms. James dressed in his best suit, the one he had worn to Sarah's funeral and not touched since. It felt strange putting it on for something joyful, like crossing a threshold from grief into hope. Pastor Fletcher arrived first, riding in with his Bible and his warm smile. Sheriff Miller came next with his wife, Dr. Pierce and his family, a few townspeople who had defended Kate at the council meeting. Not many, but enough. Enough to witness that what James and Kate built was real and lasting and worth celebrating despite Bismarck's judgment. Then Kate appeared. She walked from her cabin wearing a dress of deep blue wool that Dr. Pierce's wife had helped her make. Simple, but beautiful. Her hair was pinned back with prairie flowers woven through like a crown. She carried no bouquet, needed none. James forgot to breathe. Sam walked beside her, giving her away in lieu of the father she had lost. The old cook's eyes were suspiciously bright as he placed Kate's hand in James's. "Take care of her," Sam said quietly. "She deserves the world." "I know," James replied. "I will spend my life trying to give it to her." Pastor Fletcher began the ceremony, his voice carrying across the assembled group. He spoke of love and commitment, of trials faced and overcome, of building futures from ashes. But James barely heard the words. He was too focused on Kate. On the way, her hand trembled slightly in his, on the tears shining in her eyes, on the smile that transformed her whole face when he slipped his mother's ring onto her finger. "I, James Thomas Harrison, take you, Catherine Marie Brennan, to be my lawfully wedded wife," he said when his turn came. "I promise to honor you, to protect you, to build a life worthy of your courage and your love. You came into my life when I had given up on living. You gave me back my future, and I will spend every day I have left proving that I deserve the gift you are." Kate's tears fell freely now. When she spoke, her voice shook but held steady. I, Catherine Marie Brennan, take you, James Thomas Harrison, to be my lawfully wedded husband. I promise to stand beside you through whatever comes, to build our dreams together, to love you not in spite of your wounds, but because of the man they made you. You asked me what kind of work I was looking for. I found it. Purpose and partnership and love. I choose you. Today, tomorrow, always. Pastor Fletcher smiled. By the power vested in me by the territory of Dakota, and by God Almighty, I pronounce you husband and wife. James, you may kiss your bride. James pulled Kate close and kissed her, long and deep and full of promise. The assembled group cheered, ranch hands whooping, and Sam wiping his eyes unashamedly. When they finally pulled apart, Kate laughed through her tears. We did it, she said. We did, James agreed. And we are going to be very happy, Mrs. Harrison. The celebration that followed filled the ranch house with laughter and music and joy that had been absent too long. Sam's food disappeared as fast as he could serve it. Someone produced a fiddle and dancing broke out in the cleared main room. James danced with his wife, careful of his still healing side, not caring about propriety or appearances or anything except the woman in his arms. I love you, he said against her hair. I love you too. Kate pulled back to look at him, and in about 6 months we are going to have a very tangible reminder of that love. Best reminder I could ask for. As midnight approached, James led Kate upstairs to the master bedroom. Their bedroom now. He had spent the afternoon making it perfect. Fresh flowers, clean linens, candles casting warm light over everything. Welcome home, Mrs. Harrison, he said, closing the door behind them. Kate smiled radiant in the candlelight. It sounds perfect when you say it. They came together then, gentle and unhurried, learning each other properly for the first time. James was careful of his healing wound, but Kate was careful too, her touch reverent and sweet and full of promise. Afterward, they lay tangled together, Kate's head on his chest, his hand resting protectively on her stomach where their child grew. Thank you, James said into the darkness. For what? For saying yes, for taking a chance on a broken-down cowboy with more ghosts than sense. Kate laughed softly. You were never broken down, James, just healing, and I am honored to be part of that healing. They fell asleep like that, wrapped in each other, and the knowledge that whatever came next, they would face it together. The future stretched ahead full of possibility and hope. But first, they had a reckoning to arrange. Beat 18. Blackwood's downfall. 5 days after the wedding, word reached Blackwood that James Harrison was ready to talk about selling Silver Creek. The message was carefully crafted, suggesting defeat and desperation in equal measure. Blackwood arrived at noon on a Tuesday, riding in with his usual arrogance and 2 bodyguards flanking him. James met him in the yard, noting how the older man's eyes swept the ranch like he already owned it. Harrison, Blackwood said, dismounting, I received your message about reconsidering my offer. Let us talk in my office, James said, his voice deliberately flat. Beaten. No point discussing business in the cold. They entered the house, Blackwood's bodyguard staying outside. In the office, James closed the door and gestured to a chair. What Blackwood did not know was that Sheriff Miller crouched in the adjoining room door, cracked just enough to hear every word. Pastor Fletcher waited there too, Bible in hand, ready to bear witness to whatever came next. Kate was in their bedroom upstairs as they had agreed, far from danger, safe. So, Blackwood said, settling into the chair like it was already his, you are finally seeing sense. The ambush made you realize this land is too dangerous for a man alone. James poured whiskey, his hand steady despite rage simmering beneath his skin. 2 good men died. I nearly died. It makes a man reconsider his priorities. Indeed, Blackwood accepted the glass. I am prepared to offer $10,000. Final offer. Take it and start fresh somewhere safer. That is less than your previous offer. You are in no position to negotiate, Harrison. Your reputation is damaged. Your crew is spooked. And you have taken on the burden of a pregnant wife who will need stability, not frontier danger." James felt cold fury at the mention of Kate, but kept his face neutral. "How did you know she is pregnant?" "We have not announced it." Blackwood smiled. "I make it my business to know things. Small town, loose lips. Someone at Dr. Pierce's office talks for the right price." "I see." James sipped his whiskey. "And if I refuse your offer, then you continue to struggle, continue to face accidents and setbacks, continue to risk the safety of your new bride and unborn child." Blackwood leaned forward. "Frontier life is dangerous, Harrison. Anything could happen." There it was, the threat, the implicit admission that previous accidents had not been accidents at all. "Like the ambush?" James asked carefully. "Like the ambush," Blackwood agreed. Then, realizing what he had said, he straightened. Which was tragic. Random violence. "The territory is full of desperate men." "Except it was not random, was it?" James set down his glass. "Those rustlers knew exactly when I would be returning. Knew I would be carrying cash from the cattle sale. Someone told them." Blackwood's eyes narrowed. "Careful with your accusations, Harrison." "I am not accusing. I am stating facts." James stood his movement casual, but his intent deadly serious. "The rustlers were hired by a man named Carson. Carson, who works for you, who has been on your payroll for 2 years. Color drained from Blackwood's face. "That proves nothing. Carson is an independent contractor. Who you paid to organize the ambush, to steal my money and kill my men, to make my life so difficult I would have no choice but to sell." James took a step closer. "How much did you pay him, Blackwood? What is the going rate for murder these days?" "You have no proof." But Blackwood's voice shook slightly. "I have confessions from the rustlers. I have bank records. I have a trail of payments that leads straight to you." James leaned on the desk, his face inches from Blackwood's. "And now I have you admitting that the ambush was not random, admitting that accidents and setbacks have been your doing, admitting you threatened my wife and child." Blackwood shot to his feet. "This is entrapment. You set me up." "I gave you the opportunity to confess. You took it." James straightened. "Sheriff Miller heard everything. So did Pastor Fletcher. You just buried yourself, Blackwood." The door to the adjoining room opened. Sheriff Miller stepped out, hand on his gun, face grim. "Marcus Blackwood, you are under arrest for conspiracy to commit robbery and murder, attempted murder, and making terroristic threats." Blackwood's face went purple with rage. "This is illegal. You cannot do this." "I just did." Miller pulled out handcuffs. "You have the right to remain silent, but I suspect that ship has sailed." Pastor Fletcher emerged, his expression sad but resolute. "I witnessed everything, Marcus, every word, and I will testify before God and the law to what I heard." "You orchestrated this," Blackwood spat at James. "Set me up like an animal in a trap." "You killed 2 of my men," James said, his voice deadly quiet. "You tried to kill me. You threatened my wife and child. I just made sure you could not escape justice." As Sheriff Miller led Blackwood away in handcuffs, the man's mask finally cracked. "You will regret this, Harrison. I have friends, lawyers, influence. I will destroy you." "You already tried," James said, "and you failed. Because you forgot something important, Blackwood. You forgot that some things cannot be bought. Loyalty, honor, justice. And now you are going to pay for forgetting." The bodyguards tried to intervene, but ranch hands appeared from barn and bunkhouse, outnumbering them easily. Blackwood was loaded into Sheriff Miller's wagon, still shouting threats and denials. When they were gone, Kate appeared at the top of the stairs. James climbed to meet her, and they stood together watching through the window as the wagon disappeared toward Bismarck. "It is over," Kate said. "Not yet. There is still the trial." "But we won. You won." James pulled her close. "We won. Together. The way we will win everything that matters from now on." Beat 19. Trial and Victory. The trial lasted 3 days and became the biggest event Bismarck had seen in years. Every seat in the courthouse was filled. People stood along the walls and crowded the doorways. The territory prosecutor brought charges that made Blackwood's expensive lawyers sweat. Conspiracy to commit robbery, conspiracy to commit murder, attempted murder, 2 counts of accessory to murder for the Harris brothers. The evidence was damning. Bank records, Rustler's confessions, Sheriff Miller's testimony about what he heard in James's office, Pastor Fletcher's solemn oath before God that every word was true. But the defense fought hard, tried to claim entrapment, argued that James had orchestrated the whole thing to destroy a business rival, painted Blackwood as a respectable businessman targeted by a desperate man. Then Kate took the stand. She wore her best dress, her pregnancy just starting to show. When the defense lawyer tried to paint her as a woman of questionable morals, she met his eyes with steel in her gaze. "Sir," she said clearly, "I am a certified teacher who saved enough money to travel west seeking honest work. I found employment at Silver Creek Ranch through my own qualifications, and I married James Harrison because I love him, not because of scandal or necessity." "But you were pregnant before marriage," the lawyer pressed. "I was. And we married as soon as James recovered from nearly being murdered by your client's hired guns." Her voice did not waver. "Tell me, which is the greater scandal, a woman loving the man who gave her hope when she had none, or a wealthy man ordering the deaths of innocents to expand his empire?" The courtroom erupted. The judge hammered for order. The defense lawyer tried to recover, but the damage was done. James testified next, laid out the timeline, the offers to buy Silver Creek, the increasing pressure, the ambush that killed 2 good men, his own brush with death. "Marcus Blackwood has spent 2 years trying to destroy me," James said from the witness stand. "Not through honest competition, but through intimidation, violence, and murder. He failed. Because justice, real justice, cannot be bought or threatened into silence." The jury deliberated for 4 hours. When they returned, the foreman stood. "We find the defendant, Marcus Blackwood, guilty on all charges." The courtroom exploded with noise, some cheering, some shocked. Blackwood himself sat frozen, his face ashen. The judge sentenced him to 20 years in territorial prison. All assets to be seized and sold with restitution paid to victims' families and to James for damages. As they led Blackwood away, he caught James's eye across the courtroom. For just a moment, the mask of arrogance fell completely. What remained was just a broken old man who had gambled everything on greed and lost. James felt no satisfaction, no triumph, just quiet certainty that justice had been served. Outside the courthouse, Kate took his hand. "The Harris families will receive compensation," she said. "It does not bring their husbands and brothers back, but it helps." "It is all we can do," James agreed. "Make sure they are taken care of. Make sure Blackwood pays for what he took from them." They walked to the wagon through crowds that parted for them. Some people smiled. Some nodded respect. Some misses. Holloway among them turned away in shame at having backed the wrong man. On the ride home, Kate rested her head on James's shoulder. "It is really over now," she said. "The Blackwood chapter is, but our story is just beginning." She smiled. "I like the sound of that." Silver Creek Ranch appeared on the horizon as the sun began to set. Home, family, future. Everything James had thought lost forever, now restored and waiting. They had won, not just against Blackwood, but against grief and loss and the cruel assumption that second chances did not exist. They had won because they fought together, and they would keep winning, James thought, as he helped Kate down from the wagon, because together they were unstoppable. Beat 20. The birth. April arrived at Silver Creek with the promise of new life everywhere. Calves in the pastures, foals in the barn, and Kate 9 months pregnant and ready to meet the child they had created. James was terrified. He had faced war, had rebuilt from nothing, had stared down Blackwood and won. But the thought of Kate in labor and pain, possibly in danger, made him feel helpless in ways battle never had. "Stop pacing," Sam said from the kitchen. "You are going to wear a hole in the floor." "She has been in there for 18 hours, Sam, 18 hours." Babies come on their own schedule. Dr. Pierce said so. But James could not stop pacing, could not stop listening for sounds from upstairs, could not stop remembering Sarah, how quickly fever had taken her, how powerless he had been to save her. "James," Kate's voice, strained but firm, came from the top of the stairs. "Stop worrying. I am fine. You are in labor. You are not fine. I am managing. Dr. Pierce says everything is progressing normally." She winced as a contraction hit. "Though I will admit this hurts considerably more than I expected. Let me come up. Let me help." "You will help by staying down there and not panicking." Kate smiled despite pain. "I have Dr. Pierce and the midwife he brought. And I have your child refusing to cooperate with my very reasonable requests to hurry up." Then she was gone back to the bedroom, and James resumed pacing. The day dragged into evening into night. Still Kate labored, her occasional cries drifting down to where James sat on the stairs, head in hands, praying to a God he was not sure listened. "Please," he thought, "please let her be okay. Let them both be okay. I cannot lose her. I cannot." Near midnight, Dr. Pierce came down, his expression grave. "What is it?" James shot to his feet. "What is wrong?" "The baby is breech, turned the wrong way. I need to try to turn it manually, but it will be painful for Kate, very painful." "Do it," James said without hesitation. "Whatever she needs. She is asking for you, says she needs you there." James took the stairs 3 at a time. He found Kate propped up on pillows, her face pale and slick with sweat, her hair plastered to her forehead. But when she saw him, she smiled. "There you are," she said. "I need you to hold my hand while Dr. Pierce does something unpleasant." "Kate." James took her hand, felt how cold her fingers were. "I am here. I am not going anywhere." What followed was the longest, most brutal half-hour of James's life. Dr. Pierce worked to manually turn the baby while Kate screamed. James held her hand and whispered every promise he could think of. "You are the strongest person I know. You are going to get through this. Our baby needs you. I need you. Stay with me, Kate. Stay with me." Finally, impossibly, Dr. Pierce stepped back. "It is done. The baby is in position. Now, Kate, when the next contraction comes, you push." Kate pushed. For what felt like hours, James watched her pour every bit of strength into bringing their child into the world. Then at 9:23 in the evening on April 26, 1884, Thomas James Harrison entered the world, screaming. Dr. Pierce cleaned the baby and handed him to Kate. "You have a son, Mrs. Harrison, a healthy, angry son who made you work for it." Kate cradled their child, tears streaming down her face. "He is perfect. James, he is perfect." James looked at his son, tiny red face, shock of dark hair, eyes that would be blue like his own, and he felt something break open in his chest. Not pain this time, but overwhelming, crushing love for this small person who existed because he and Kate had refused to give up on each other. "May I?" he asked. Kate placed their son in his arms. Thomas, so small, James was terrified of breaking him, looked up with unfocused eyes and made a sound somewhere between a cry and a yawn. "Hello, son," James whispered. "I am your father, and I promise you I will spend every day of my life making sure you grow up safe and loved and happy." "You are crying," Kate said softly. "I know." James did not bother wiping the tears. "I thought I had used them all up. Turns out I had some left for joy." Dr. Pierce, exhausted but smiling, packed his instruments. "Mrs. Harrison, you are the most stubborn patient I have ever had. You argued about proper birthing technique during labor." Kate laughed weakly. "I had to make sure you were doing it correctly." After the doctor left, Sam was allowed in to meet his newest family member. The old cook took one look at the baby and had to sit down. "A baby at Silver Creek," he said, his voice thick. "Sarah would have loved this." "I think she would," James agreed. He felt no guilt saying it. Sarah was part of his past, honored and remembered. But Thomas and Kate were his future. Both could be true. That night Kate fell asleep in their bed with Thomas in a cradle beside her. James sat in a chair watching them both, unable to tear his eyes away. He had thought his life ended the day Sarah died, had believed himself broken beyond repair, had accepted loneliness as the price of survival. Then Kate Brennan had stood in the middle of a Bismarck street with nothing but pride and determination, and everything changed. Now James had a wife he loved fiercely, a son who carried his name, a ranch that thrived, a future that stretched ahead full of possibility instead of empty regret. He had built an empire from ashes, but more importantly, he had built a life worth living. Epilogue. 10 years later. Golden autumn afternoon light painted Silver Creek Ranch in shades of amber and gold. James Harrison stood on the hill overlooking his land. Kate beside him, their hands intertwined the way they had been for 10 years of marriage. Below them, the ranch had grown beyond anything James imagined that first day he met Kate in Bismarck. The main house had been expanded twice. Barns multiplied, corrals spread across acres. 5,000 head of cattle grazed land that stretched to the horizon. And everywhere life. Thomas, now 9 years old, and the image of his father, led his younger siblings on some adventure only children could devise. Sarah Catherine, 7, followed her brother with determination that reminded James painfully of her mother. Samuel, 4, and named for the old cook who had died peacefully 2 years prior, brought up the rear with the fearlessness of the youngest child. "Did you ever imagine this?" Kate asked, leaning against James's shoulder. At 34, she had grown even more beautiful, confidence and happiness adding grace to features that had once been merely determined. "Never," James admitted. At 49, silver streaked his dark hair and lines of sun and laughter marked his face. The bullet scar still pulled when it rained, but it was just another reminder that he had survived. "When I saw you that day in Bismarck defeated and alone, I did not imagine any of this." "I was not defeated," Kate protested. "Temporarily set back." James laughed. "My apologies. Temporarily set back and extremely stubborn. That is better." They watched their children play, watched ranch hands finish evening chores, watched smoke curl from the chimney of the house that had become so much more than James ever thought possible. "The school board meeting next week," Kate said. "Are you ready?" James nodded. Kate's educational methods had become the foundation for North Dakota's public school system. Her textbook Teaching the Frontier was used across the country. She had built something that would outlast them both. "You have changed this territory," James said. "Changed hundreds of lives through education. We changed it together. Your ranch proved women could do more than society allowed. My school proved education mattered even on the frontier." She smiled. "Partnership, remember? I remember." From the direction of the house, the dinner bell rang. Their children came racing up the hill, Thomas in the lead as always. "Mama, Papa, Uncle Miguel says supper is ready, and if we are late, he is giving our portions to the chickens." "Then we better hurry," Kate said, laughing. They walked down the hill together, family surrounding them, the ranch they had built spread out below. James thought about the journey that had brought them here, the grief and loss, the second chances, the stubborn refusal to give up even when everything seemed hopeless. He thought about a question asked on a dusty Bismarck street. "What kind of work are you looking for?" Kate had been looking for survival. Instead, she found purpose, partnership, and love. James had been looking for nothing, convinced his life was over. Instead, he found everything that mattered. They reached the house as twilight painted the sky purple and gold. Inside, warmth and laughter and the smell of Miguel's cooking. Outside, a ranch that thrived and land that provided and a future that promised more of the same. James Harrison had built an empire from ashes, but more than that, he had built a home. And as Kate's hand squeezed his while their children's laughter filled the air, James knew one truth with absolute certainty. He was the luckiest man alive. The West had promised opportunity to those brave enough to claim it. James and Kate had claimed more than opportunity. They had claimed hope, family, legacy. They had claimed everything, and they had done it together, the way all great things are built, together.